Whether you're 2-0 or 0-2, this is the video for you because we got 8 trade targets, 4 guys to buy, 4 guys to sell, all to help you improve your team moving forward. And like I said at the top, we have 8 trade targets. We're going to go 2 buys, 2 sells, 2 buys, 2 sells. Hopefully give you a wide array of players that'll be able to help your team in one way or another. And Ty, you're starting us off with Josh Jacobs. And I don't look at Josh Jacobs necessarily think buy low. And I don't know if you do either, but you are just saying go get Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, you'll look at Josh Jacobs and go, really? A buy low on Josh Jacobs? That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying at whatever cost it costs you, go get Josh Jacobs. The simplest way to win in fantasy football, get really good players on your team on really good offenses. Josh Jacobs so far has proved that point as the bell cow in a really good offense. Sure, it hasn't been, any boom games so far, just 14 and 13 points so far in half PPR. But I promise you that there are bigger games ahead for Josh Jacobs. When you just look at the next 5 opponents for Green Bay, you get Cleveland, you get Dallas. There's a bye week in week 5, which you'll have to kind of work around. But right after that, you get Cincinnati, Arizona, and Pittsburgh. Everyone outside of Cleveland is in the top half of fantasy points allowed to running back so far on the year. And again, I'm expecting this Green Bay team to really continue on the path that they're on right now of really good defense and letting the offense just take over and dominate. So if you have somebody like Travis Etienne, maybe an Alvin Kamara, you can package him up, or even my upcoming sell. Nice little tease for what's coming up. If you have some of those guys who are on not as great of offenses, who are overperforming right now based on the workload that they have and are actually outscoring Josh Jacobs, you can package those guys up and go tier up to a guy like Josh Jacobs, and that sets you up for success down the road.
Yeah, Jacobs second right now in the NFL in total attempts, but he's only at 3.6 yards per attempt. We expect that to pick up. He is too good. This Green Bay offense is too good for that to continue over the rest of the season. You talked about their upcoming schedule. Looks awesome. Cleveland, right? They just held Derrick Henry to 24 yards. So maybe that's a little scary. But let's be honest. Do we really think Cleveland's going to put up any points on Green Bay? No, they're not. So at the very least, he is going to have insane volume once again going into this week. I agree. I think you're probably buying him where you drafted him. But with the way the Packers look, with how much volume he's getting, you are buying low compared to where I think and I believe where you think he's going to finish. And I think that's the biggest thing with Josh Jacobs is, yeah, you're buying flat compared to where he's at now, expecting him to take that step forward. Before I get to my buy low, we just want to take 5 seconds again and just say thank you to you guys for the 5K. We gave away our jersey last week to William. We're very excited. We're hoping to do another giveaway in the future. If we get to 10K very quick, we'll do a real big giveaway. But we're working on starting some soon because the way that you guys just blew up the videos last week was amazing. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications as well. And yeah, welcome to the fellowship if you are joining today. That's so cheesy. We got to quit that, but I don't even care. My buy low is Drake London. And it's crazy to say, similar to Josh Jacobs, that we could talk about a buy low guy who had 15 targets in week 1. But if you look at what he did against Minnesota, and it was really disappointing. He had the fumble, could have been a salvageable week, but obviously he dropped 2 points in the fumble. But let's remember, he came into the game with a shoulder injury. Both offenses didn't look great outside of Bijan Robinson, who just lit the world on fire on Monday night. So we don't know the full extent of how that impacted him during that game. However, it's not supposed to have lasting impacts moving forward. Re-injury risk could be a little bit higher, but as far as dip in performance, he should be fine. And I know, like I said earlier, he didn't get the points in week 1, but 15 targets on 8 receptions is what you want to see from an alpha wide receiver. And that's what he's seen with Penix. He's played 5 games with Penix so far. And he's seen 8, 13, 18, 15, and then, of course, 4 targets. But to see 13, 18, and 15 in 3 of the 5 games you played with a guy, I'd say that's pretty impressive. And some of the players I'm okay moving to go get Drake London. I'm going to move Rome after that great week. Emeka Egbuka, I'm going to capitalize. Garrett Wilson, James Cook. Now, I understand, some of those guys, depending on the league, maybe they're not going to be 1-for-1s. And I do want to say that just as a whole, for all these names we're throwing out there, we understand that, hey, maybe it's not going to be a direct 1-for-1 trade to move these guys, but these would be the main pieces in the package on both sides that you would use to go get him. So I don't want to hear the comments, nobody's going to take Rome for Drake London. That's what you build the package around after Rome's great week. So that's what we're saying with those players.
Drake London's an interesting one because I think you can convince yourself pretty easily that, like, hey, what if Atlanta has games like they did against Minnesota where they just rely on Bijan and Tyler Algier, and that Drake London in the passing game is kind of an afterthought? But the realistic question that you need to ask yourself is, like, how many times do you actually see that happening in a year? I don't think it's going to be sustainable. I don't think it's going to happen majority of the games. So when Atlanta does go up against teams where they're either playing from behind or they're in neutral game situations and they need to throw the ball still, Michael Penix is going to be looking for Drake London. So maybe the shoulder played a little bit into it too as well against Minnesota. I'm not concerned about a drop off or anything like that. You know exactly what you're going to get with Drake London when everything is equal.
For sure. And if you're watching this video too and you're going, hey, where are names like AJ Brown, Brian Thomas Jr.? Well, we talked about 9 different guys on whether it's time to panic last episode. So some of those names aren't going to carry over into this one. I know Ty and I talked about AJ Brown before the show, but we didn't want to just give you the same thing 2 times in a row because we did share our thoughts on that yesterday. So make sure that you go check out that video. But Ty, let's jump into some sells here. And you're going with our guy, Chuba Hubbard. And I'm really interested to hear the case because to me, I don't feel like he's a sell high. So I need to be convinced a little bit on this one.
All right. Well, okay. Because I think that Chuba is a pretty easy sell for me at this point. 16 points in back-to-back games looks great until you actually remember that Chuba Hubbard has gotten to 16 points on the back of late game receiving touchdowns. You just need to ask yourself, how often is that going to happen? I don't think that's going to happen as consistent as it's been happening. I don't believe that Chuba's fantasy points are going to fall off drastically either. And I think that's where I can understand where you're coming from of just like, well, Chuba isn't exactly going to be a guy that like all of a sudden is only averaging half of those fantasy points and putting up 8-9 points a game. But ultimately, for a guy like Chuba Hubbard, who is inside the top 10 right now in points per game, he's actually the running back 9. I am just expecting Chuba Hubbard to finish closer to 20 or produce closer to the running back 20 than to the running back 5. And you also add in the fact, too, that this Carolina offense is massively struggling right now. They just lost 2 starters on the offensive line, and arguably their best offensive line piece in Robert Hunt on the interior. I think there are just a lot. There's a lot that can go wrong for Chuba here, that he's relying on the receiving work, and maybe he gets it, but I'm not exactly sure that Chuba Hubbard is primarily a receiving threat here in this offense. So again, Chuba was the name that I did not mention when I was talking about Josh Jacobs, where I'm going, okay, if I'm looking at Chuba Hubbard and Josh Jacobs straight up, who am I expecting to have the more long-term success between Chuba and Josh Jacobs? Whether that's offensive offensive production and efficiency, or just, again, who is the bigger threat to have the highest point total on a week-to-week basis between Josh Jacobs and Chuba Hubbard? I'm leaning Josh Jacobs. And right now, you can capitalize on that by packaging up Chuba Hubbard to go get a Josh Jacobs. So maybe this is a little nuanced, maybe a little niched to say that like you're only targeting certain guys if you have Chuba Hubbard. But I come back to the general thoughts of Chuba Hubbard being a top 10 guy with the current situation in Carolina, I don't think is sustainable. And that it's an opportunity to capitalize. And again, not saying he's going to drastically fall off. I just don't expect it to be at a top 10 clip.
So I guess for me, I just don't see why he would lose any volume. I understand the receiving touchdowns probably aren't going to be there. But just from looking at Carolina, it's Tet. And then the most consistent player outside of Tet is Hunter Renfrow as far as guys to touch the ball. Right? Xavier Legette hasn't been who you want. I understand we like Jalen Coker, but he's going to be coming off quad injury. He's still unproven. So that's where I'm just wondering, does he continue to just see these receiving work? Does he continue to see? I know he only had 10 rush attempts in this last game, which is, I understand, is definitely a worry when it comes to Chuba because they just haven't been playing good. And there's going to be a lot of games where they're going to be down. But at the same time, I do think that for me, the volume's enough and the name's not sexy enough that I think I can sell him high enough to kind of capitalize on this start. I understand, if you can trade him to go get a Josh Jacobs, I'm all on board for that. I think that's what you do. I guess in that way, if you can tier up with Chuba, that would be the way that I think he's a sell. But I'm not going to try to look at a guy who I think is just going to, at the same level, or going to kind of emerge from beneath him. So that I understand what you're saying. I'm just struggling a little bit because I just don't see the volume falling off.
Well, so then Chase Brown is a perfect example of this. You know what Chase Brown's going to get in terms of volume, but are the touchdowns going to be there? And that was a concern that we had for Chase Brown last episode. That's the concern for Chuba Hubbard. The touches will be there. Is he going to find the end zone enough where he doesn't exactly lose you a week, but he's not going to win you a week if he doesn't find the end zone?
For sure. And I understand that. So I'm okay with the sentiment you left us at of trading him for certain players, right? You're not just, it's not a, hey, you got to get rid of Chuba kind of a thing.
Right.
It's be selective, but he is a guy that you could look to move because there are going to be down weeks ahead. There just are going to be when you're on the Carolina Panthers. So I for sure understand that. My sell hurts me a little bit. I'm going to be honest, Ty. I don't like saying this one because I wanted to be the truther for Travis Etienne. But the more I've thought about it, the more I just think it's such a fragile ecosystem he's in Jacksonville that even if he continues this the rest of the season, which he might, is a slim chance because if he misses 1 or 2 games, the chance of Pearsall Tutin overtaking him as the number one in this offense is right there. And that's all it takes. You remember Rachaad White last season, right? It was for the whole beginning half of the year. It was, man, we want to see more Bucky. We want to see more Bucky. We want to see more Bucky. And Rachaad White was fine. All of a sudden he got hurt. Bucky popped off. And Rachaad White was, you could kind of have him as like a low end flex most weeks. And that's my worry with Etienne is I want to cash in now while we're still seeing these good weeks. And again, like Chuba, I don't necessarily think it's going to fall off. But the fact that he had 14 carries, Tutin had 8 carries, they both had the same amount of receiving work last game, makes me nervous enough that they're going to continue to have more Tutin in this offense. And then you add in the fact of the contracts that Etienne is not a Jaguar after this year. They're going to want to see more and more what they have with Pearsall Tutin and LaQuint Allen going into the offseason so they know what to do for next year. So that's my worry is he's just going to get slowly phased out. And if you have 1 week with a sprained ankle, it could flip on its head so quickly that, again, I would trade for a Kyren, Josh Jacobs kind of guy, like you said. Do I think I could get Josh Jacobs for Travis Etienne straight at 1-for-1? Probably not. But what I can do is I can go Etienne plus, Etienne in a package, right? You can do a 2-for-2 where you give a slightly better wide receiver or something like that. Be a little creative, but that's the package I would go do. Kyren Williams, another guy. Oh, shoot. I just spoiled one of my buys for later, but I guess you can go find that out. We'll talk about him too. So those are kind of guys that I would trade Travis Etienne for.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Etienne, I don't want to call it a fragile situation, but I agree with the sentiment and the concern that you have of just like, are we sure that this is going to be for we're going to get this for the entire year? Because what's to say, like you said, an injury happens and Etienne is playing at 90% for the rest of the year? What happens if kind of the growing pains that we've been seeing in Jacksonville continue on for the rest of the year? And before you know it, they're kind of on the outside looking in when it comes to the playoffs. And when that happens, that's when we see teams start to get their young guys and their rookies more involved and give them more game time. So that would fit the narrative for Pearsall, Tootin, and LaQuint Allen as well. So I would agree with you. I understand that, like, if you want to hold on to Etienne for a couple more weeks, I totally get it. But I think this is one, just me personally, in the fantasy player that I am, and I resonate with the sentiment that you had again of just like, I would just try to get what I can right now, especially on the fact that we've gone 17 and 16 in back-to-back weeks. What's to say that we don't get 8 or 9 next week? And then a lot of people go, oh, that's the Travis Etienne that I know. And then you're like, well, now I'm stuck with him.
No, 100%. And that's why I would move him for a guy that I think could put up comparable numbers to where he's at. Because at the end of the day, yes, like you said, I think he could succeed in this offense and be this good rest of the year. But I just know that there's that extra risk, and I'm just trying to offload that risk a little bit for a guy I think that's going to perform comparably. All right, before we get into our next 2 buys and sells, we're going to hear a quick word from our friends over at Underdog Fantasy.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog, where you can get into the game this season playing Pick'em. It's extremely simple. Just pick higher or lower on 2 or more of your favorite players. For example, I'll pick the highers on Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Xavier Worthy. If I played $10 and got all 3 of them right, I would win $60 just by watching football. And that's the beauty of Pick'em. You can track your picks and your wins while you enjoy the game. Now, if you're not on Underdog yet, scan the QR code on your screen or use our code FELLAS when you sign up, because new customers will get $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5 on the app. Plus, Underdog will give you a free pick to use in your first entry. Again, that's code FELLAS over on Underdog. Now let's get you back to the rest of the show.
And we're back. 2 more buys, 2 more sells, and Ty, I can't say I'm surprised about this one. And I don't think the people are either. You come back to it. You do. And I think I need to be a little convinced on this one, because Ricky Pearsall is great, played well again. It's still Mac Jones, and they're not going to play the Saints each week. So talk me into why Ricky's a buy right now.
Well, because of that very reason, a lot of people go, well, he's got Mac Jones. And so I don't know exactly if I'm going to be able to trust him, but let's also remember Brock Purdy isn't out for the entire year.
That's a good point.
He is just out for a couple more weeks. There is the other side of this though too, where there is a growing consensus of people being concerned for Ricky Pearsall, that it hasn't looked great so far this year. And I just kind of laugh at it a little bit, because I'm like, I don't know what the big deal is about Ricky. If you put aside the whole like backup quarterback situation right now, I think a lot of people that are concerned about Ricky Pearsall had bought into the idea or the narrative that it could be a Ricky Pearsall breakout year. And I just didn't think that was ever going to happen. Like, if your expectations were so high for Ricky going into the year, you were kind of in store for a letdown, because, again, I just didn't think it was going to be a breakout year for Ricky Pearsall. The fact was he was going late enough in drafts that he can give you some wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 flexibility for your teams. And that's exactly what you got in week 1 against Seattle. Unfortunate, Brock Purdy gets hurt, and now we're stuck with Mac Jones. But I just think at this moment, even with the backup quarterback, just taking a look at how this wide receiver room and pass catcher room, Christian McCaffrey aside, because Christian McCaffrey is a beast, but receivers and tight ends, I should just say, actually, it's in general, of all receivers with 10 targets, he's 15th in yards per out run. He's 7th of all those receivers in team air yard share. So he's getting some deep looks. He's top 20 in first downs per route run and expected fantasy points as well. Both are first on the 49ers, more than Jawan Jennings. And I know that Jawan Jennings just had the big game. Let's not, blow that out of proportion. A 42-yard touchdown will make anybody's week good, no matter if that's their only catch or if that was their 15th catch, right? So I think Ricky is still someone you can consider in your lineups every single week, especially when Purdy comes back, because games like week 1 against Seattle are always possible. Sure, they're going to be a little hard to predict, but that's what you can get from a guy. And if you can get that as your wide receiver 3, there are a lot worse wide receiver 3s out there for your lineups.
Yeah, and I do want to say, because George Kittle is out, and that's you made me start thinking about that too. We're going to get Brock Purdy back. Kittle's out. He's going to come back. But the guy who gets affected the most when Kittle's in the lineup is not Ricky Pearsall. It's Juwan Jennings. And we saw that last year, right? Juwan Jennings had 2 crazy games when George Kittle was out of the lineup. George Kittle comes back, still a good wide receiver, but it's a little bit different. Ayuk, again, throws a little bit of a, what's going to happen in this wide receiver room. So I think Ricky really is the bet on, do you believe in Ricky Pearsall as the wide receiver or do you not? Because if you do, then he has a path to consistent targets in a good offense. And that's really what it comes down to. So if you believe in Ricky as wide receiver, I think he is a buy. I'm not 100% convinced, but I have been not a Ricky hater, but a Ricky doubter as so far this offseason. I just want to see it first before I'm willing to buy in. Whereas Ty, and I know there's a group of people who've seen enough flashes that this guy's going to earn more targets. He's going to continue to be consistent. You give him Brock Purdy back and watch out. So I do understand it from that perspective. My buy, and I know Lucas wishes he was on the episode right now to try and tear into this because he's not really a fan of this one. And you know what? I don't care. That's why he's not on this one. It's Kyren Williams. And Lucas mentioned something, and I didn't get a chance to go back at it with him yesterday, where he was worried about how much Blake Corum is cutting into Kyren's workload. And he was right. Kyren had the second lowest snap share of the last 2 years last game. 71% snap share still. He's still top 10 in snap share in the NFL and his second worst in 2 seasons. All right. I'm not concerned. Yeah, Blake Corum had 3 red zone touches. Kyren still had 4. In week 1, Kyren had all 4. Blake Corum had 0. So I understand there's a little bit of a concern that he might cut into it. Maybe Kyren doesn't get 14 touchdowns instead. This year he gets 9 or 10. Which, yeah, I would think a little bit. But I'm not too concerned about Kyren Williams. From that aspect, I think they just paid him a lot of money. They're going to continue to use him. Sean McVay leans on one guy. I think he's going to continue to do that here. And this offense has been rolling. And the last 2 games, it's been rolling through Devontae and Puka Nacua. And could that happen a lot? Absolutely. But even when that's happening, Kyren Williams is still averaging over 17 carries a game. So I don't know. I'm just not concerned enough. And similar to Josh Jacobs, volume's been there. Fantasy points have not quite as much, and even less so for Kyren. So I'm willing to trade away. You mentioned Chuba Hubbard earlier. Perfect guy to trade away to go get Kyren. I would do that in a heartbeat. Travis Etienne, I would trade away to go get Kyren. Guys like that. J.K. Dobbins, I would package to go get Kyren. I think Kyren Williams is still a top 10 back, and I think some of the concerns are just getting overblown about him right now.
Okay. I hate to break your heart, but I think I sided a little more with Lucas on this one.
You just hate him. Ever since he was a punt returner, you guys are like, no, we don't like Kyren. And it's just, no.
False. There was an agreement between us 3 that said we will not buy into this punt return narrative. And how dare you throw that back on us? I think when it comes to Kyren Williams, I think you just need to understand exactly what you're buying. To say that the drop in snap share isn't noteworthy is wrong. It is noteworthy enough because that is what he has relied on. But when we are still talking about a 70-30 split and maybe even a 65-35 split, because that's what Sean McVay had said in a press conference, that 65% is still among the top backs in fantasy football. So if you know the manager that is like, gosh, like Kyren Williams is like not even a top 20 guy. I'm being more liberal when I'm saying that. But if you know that there is a manager out there that's panicking and that they think that the floor is going to fall out for Kyren Williams, go buy Kyren from that person, because I think you and I would both agree Kyren is still going to be a good piece in your fantasy lineup. The ceiling is just going to take a little bit of a hit, but the floor is definitely not going to be falling out here anytime soon.
Yeah, and that's I understand the snap share, but he still had 17 carries, so that's kind of where I land with it. Of he might play a little bit less snaps, but they're still giving him the volume, and so that's why I'm not concerning. Ty, I think some people might groan at these two cells. I think if we had these cells back in 2023, people would be calling us crazy. Now we might have a little more consensus on these guys, and I'll let you start. You got Deebo Samuel here. And yeah, I'll just let you take it away, because I was going to try and give you a smooth little intro, and I just had nothing to say. So I'm going to now I'm blabbing. And I said I had nothing to say, but now I've talked for 15 seconds. So I'll just let you talk.
Well, so now I'm going to make it even more cringe, because I'm going to show my pop culture knowledge here. You know the scene in Avengers Endgame when the Hulk is coming back to Earth and he lands in the Sanctum Sanctorum and he's like, Thanos is coming. Thanos is coming. That's Deebo Samuel right now saying that Scary Terry is coming back. Okay, we have very, very small time left until that Terry McLaurin, Jaden Daniels connection is back in full strength. And then Deebo Samuel, I don't want to say reverts to a wide receiver 2 role here, but the 10 targets, the 8 targets, I just don't think is going to be as frequent as it has been so far this year. Let's also not forget that, again, the week 1 performance against the Giants, a 19-yard rushing touchdown. Don't want to say that's fluky, because we've seen it happen with Deebo before in San Francisco, but I don't think this is the same Deebo as the Deebo in San Francisco, that rushing production is going to come and go. It is not going to be as consistent. And again, Terry McLaurin is the true wide receiver 1 on this team, and he's probably going to be getting majority of the looks over Deebo Samuel. And I will also say this. Jaden Daniels is playing, it has a sprained knee right now. There are talks that he could play, but he's playing with a brace. I don't know about you guys, but quarterbacks that have these kind of knee injuries typically don't perform the same in the immediate. Now, long-term, jury's still out. That is still to be determined. But I think what we need to just agree on here, that we are running out of time of a top 10, top 15, maybe even top 20 Deebo Samuel right now. Take advantage. Go target some guys that went earlier in your drafts. I wish I had a list of names that I could just run off. But ideally, if you can package up a Deebo Samuel and go get a Ladd McConkey, that may be too steep. That may be too high of a jump. But what I'm trying to communicate is, don't think that Terry is all of a sudden a reliable piece for your fantasy team. There is a lot changing here with Terry and now with Jaden's injury, that I think it's time to just kind of get out when you can and not try to risk I'm going to hold it for another week or two, because if we get a 6 target, 4 catch for 30 yards, Deebo's value takes a shot.
Yeah, my one thing for Deebo, the one thing that holds me back a little bit is just he gets so many designed plays. And with Eckler being out for the season, them having to lean on the running backs they have, I just wonder if the volume keeps up. I will say, obviously, the last 2 scores have been inflated by touchdowns. That helps a little bit. We're not expecting Deebo to continue to have a 17 touchdown pace through the rest of the season. So I agree. Like Deebo, if I go get a guy like Jacoby Myers, sign me up. If I could go get, again, like if I can trade up to get like Tet McMillan, someone that I know just has a higher ceiling, I think that's what it is. Because I think what we've realized is Deebo's ceiling is going to be capped. I think he has a decent enough floor where he's not like, I have to get him off my team. But I do feel like the ceiling that we've seen from Deebo in the past truly is just, I just don't think it's there anymore. My last sell, Travis Kelce, and this isn't even a crazy sell high. This is just like we're reading the writing on the walls here, and I think you got to get out. He has 6 receptions in 2 games, with effectively not having Xavier Worthy or Rashee Rice on the field for either of those games because Worthy was out so early in week 1. 50% of his points so far this season came off that one play in broken coverage where he got away. That's what's concerning to me is he is 35 years old and looks 35 years old out on the field. All of a sudden you bring back Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. What are we expecting from Travis Kelce? It feels similar to almost where Mark Andrews is at this point. If you don't get the touchdown from Kelce, it's kind of going to be a gross week. I think he has a little bit more, floor than Mark Andrews does. But for me, I'm completely out, and I'm looking to upgrade at the tight end position and use, he's still got name value enough that I can go upgrade, and I'm going to buy high on a guy like Tucker Kraft. I don't think you can swing Kelce for Kraft straight up, but I'm going to go buy high on Kraft. Tyler Warren, I'd buy high on. Right. Some of these guys, you can tier down at the tight end position too. If someone's a little bit needy, I'd be okay trading away Kelce and then going to stream your tight end for the rest of the year, because I think that's where he's going to be when you get these other 2 guys back. I don't know if it's maybe I'm just too low on Kelce, Ty, and you got to talk me back into it a little bit, but I don't know. What do you think? Am I justified in being out on him?
I think you are a little more proactive on the selling of Travis Kelce, because right now the tight end landscape is pretty thin. Outside of the top 4 guys, outside of the top 3 guys, right? Like Tyler Warren, Tucker Kraft, Trey McBride, it is kind of a crapshoot right now, and you don't know exactly what you're getting. Like, you thought Brock Bowers was a sure thing, or still rotating. He's in, he wasn't 100% healthy, but he still played. We're now talking about Juwan Johnson as being one of the top guys at the position this year because of the usage that he's getting. So I think the only way that you can move off, or that you should move off of Kelce, is if you can get one of those top 3, top 4 guys. But until then, you might just kind of have to be in a wait and see, because what's to say that Travis Kelce, again, had, most of his fantasy points come from one play. What's to say that he doesn't bring in that ball on the goal line and then actually not, tip it up for the defense to go pick off, but he actually catches it and lands in the end zone. So I think right now the tight end landscape is still in such a flux that if you're able to go tier up to one of those top 4 guys, do it. But if you're not able to, you might just be stuck with him for another week or 2, and then you have to reassess and then move from there. Or maybe Kelce kind of proves like, hey, he's still got something in the tank and that he was actually worth holding on to.
Yeah, and that's why I'm all right if someone's just like, they have Hawkinson or something, they're freaking out about tight ends, to just sell them and stream, just because it is so bare. And I just don't think he's going to be that much greater than trying to pick the best streamer each week. Well, with that wraps up our 8 trade targets. A little quicker episode for you guys today. Yeah, I think these Wednesday episodes are going to be quicker on average because we're talking about less people and we don't have Lucas blabbing all the time, so that helps a lot. And I know the viewers are very thankful for that.
I know you guys miss Matt Stafford, but yes, it just let us have this one, would you, please?
Yeah, exactly. Just give it to us. Please give us some love in the comments. But we thank you for, again, 5,000. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. We'll be back tomorrow. You don't want to miss it. 18 players who will change your week 3 outcome. And Ty, I think I might be tripling down tomorrow on Lucas for my 3rd Canes meal. So,
dude,
I gotta think of what I'm cooking to go get him, because Keenan Allen and Kayshon Boutte have really given it to me. But yeah, so make sure you're back for that. If you want to follow us on the X, it's at Tyler_Plath. I'm at Camelot FFF. FFfellas, if you want the fellas main page. The FFfellas on Instagram. Again, if you want to participate in our Panic Meter episode, from yesterday. Each Sunday, we're going to be putting out our panic meters, and you let us know if it's time to panic on guys or not. We are Fantasy Football Fellas for the rest of our pages on TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube, obviously where you're at right now. And then if you want the Fellas Shorts, I'm not going to do the bit, but we are Fantasy Football Fellas Shorts on YouTube as well. So with that, we will see you tomorrow, and deuces.
Deuces.